And I was about to spar. Before I was about to spar Tank, he was sparring this big boy.
A heavyweight.
Heavyweight boy. And Tank hit that nigga. He hit him so hard that he was on the top of the rope just like this.
Speed, Gervonta Tank Davis, if he put on the right weight, put the right weight on, and have the lean muscle right, he can look fantastic somewhere in the mid 150s, dare I say close to 160 against Jake Paul.
In shocking, unseen footage, Gervonta Davis reportedly dropped a heavyweight sparring partner while preparing for his upcoming clash with Jake Paul. The clip captures Tank's trademark power and razor-sharp timing as he lands a devastating left hand that ends the session instantly. Fans are calling it proof that Davis's speed and precision are on another level, even when he's up against fighters far bigger than him. Showbiz the Adult predicts that Gervonta Davis will step into the ring around 154 pounds for his fight against Jake Paul, brushing off all the talk that Tank might be too small to compete. He explains that Davis has walked around that weight before, so this isn't new ground for him. In fact, Showbiz points out that Tank has even trained at 160 pounds, meaning the leap isn't nearly as dramatic as people believe. He highlights how Davis has spent years sparring with bigger, stronger fighters, sharpening his timing, reflexes, and deadly counterpunches against heavy hitters. That kind of experience, mixed with his explosive power and razor-sharp fight IQ, gives Tank a real edge here. Confident in his take, Showbiz insists that Jake Paul's size won't mean a thing once Tank lands clean, and with conviction, he declares that Gervonta Davis will knock out Jake Paul with ease.
50s, dare I say, close to 160 against Jake Paul. And dare I say it, I think that's the right thing for him to do. Why? I've been saying this. Number one, fighters need to start fighting closer to their walk-around weight. They're just healthier that way. They're just better and healthier that way. I mean, I know it's probably surprising them too. Like, that was the best I've seen Terence Crawford. Lamont Roach, he's fighting Pitbull at 140, coming from 130 and a pit stop at 135. You have Shakur Stevenson talking about fighting Teofimo Lopez. They're very close to making that fight at 140. And I think all of them would look their best there, especially Roach, where he ain't knocking nobody out down there at 130. But I bet you he'll be swatting far more at 140. Gervonta Tank Davis, I think, just like the others, fighting closer to your walk-around weight is just going to be one of the better performances for Gervonta Tank Davis. He's going to learn a lot about his body. He's going to learn a lot about himself and where he should campaign moving forward. Maybe even meeting Roach in that rematch at 140 himself. Also, another reason why I think it behooves him to come in knocking at 160 pounds is because of Jake Paul. It's not like Tank is going to dodge every punch Jake Paul throws. All right, some of those going to land, and more than likely it's going to land on his guard. Tank is going to have his guard up. We need for him to be solid enough, his foundation and his base solid enough, so when Jake Paul hits him with those shots, he doesn't go flying around the ring.
Tank has reportedly been sparring with much bigger opponents to get ready for the Jake Paul showdown. But for him, this is nothing new. Since the very start of his career, Davis has pushed himself against heavier fighters, using those sessions to fine-tune his timing and precision. With his explosive power and sharp fight IQ, taking on larger opponents has never been a challenge. It's always been part of what makes him dangerous. In the latest training clips, Gervonta Davis looks sharper, leaner, and more locked in than ever before. Every punch he throws feels like a perfect blend of power and precision, something only years of discipline can create. His footwork is light, yet every step carries confidence and control. You can tell, just by watching, that each strike on the heavy bag follows a deliberate rhythm, almost like music. There's intensity in his eyes, and his speed and power move together in perfect sync. The footage alone says it all. Davis isn't just training, he's preparing for war. Experts across the boxing world can see it too, noting that his condition looks the best it's been in years. The way he combines timing, power, and total ring command has reignited talk about just how dangerous Gervonta "Tank" Davis still is at the top level. One of the biggest debates before this fight is the weight difference. Some think Jake Paul's natural size gives him the upper hand, while others believe Tank's skill will cancel out any physical gap. Fans keep asking if that size difference could make things tough for Davis, but anyone who's followed his journey knows he's been here before. He sparred and fought men much heavier than him countless times. Supporters remind everyone, boxing isn't decided by weight, it's decided by timing, discipline, and intelligence. Tank's defense and counterpunching make him a nightmare for any opponent, no matter their size. His team stands firm, convinced that his experience under pressure and his ability to read movement will let him turn Jake's own size into a weakness. For Davis, this fight isn't about showing who's stronger, it's about proving who's smarter.
It is happening. WBA lightweight champion Gervonta Davis, who's unbeaten in 31 professional contests, takes on the self-proclaimed problem child, Jake Paul, one of the most influential and marketable global personalities. Paul and Davis square off in Miami after doubts around the fight being sanctioned in Georgia triggered a change in venue. Neither fighter can weigh more than 195 pounds. The weight is perhaps the most surprising factor. Paul has boxed most of his career around 200 pounds, the cruiserweight limit, but did tip the scales at 227 pounds when he faced off against Iron Mike Tyson last year. Davis, much smaller in stature, competes at the 135 pound mark and has also won world honours at super featherweight. And despite some discussions about possibly dropping down to 10 ounces, the pair seem set to wear 12-ounce gloves. And in terms of distance, despite the exhibition tag, the fight will play out over 10 3-minute rounds with 3 scoring judges at ringside, but the result will not be officially recorded on their professional record.
Lamont Roach has been outspoken about his issues with Gervonta Davis, hinting that there are still tensions between them. His recent comments have sparked discussion, with many analysts picking up on the bitterness in his tone. Some believe Roach's frustration isn't really about any personal dispute. It's about envy over Tank's rise and the financial success that came with it. The two once had mutual respect, but now Roach's words sound more personal, almost emotional. Observers suggest he's struggling to watch Davis dominate the spotlight, grabbing headlines and million-dollar paydays while others fade into the background. Boxing experts say that when fame and money enter the ring, rivalries stop being professional and start feeling personal. But for Davis, all that noise doesn't matter. He stays silent, steady, and focused, letting his work in the gym speak louder than any words ever could.
The question is direct. Reportedly, Tank's going to make $40 million around there to fight Jake Paul. Would you do the same thing if you were in this situation? And he's like, actually, this is what I explained before. You're beating around the bush. It's really a yes or no. I would do it. I would take the 40 mil, or I wouldn't take the 40 mil. But let's listen to this long, drawn-out explanation.
There's about $40 million that he's going to get paid. If you were in his shoes, wouldn't you do the same thing?
See, now, this is something that I explain and express, and I hope everybody gets. That opportunity is an opportunity that you probably cannot pass up. But it's about how you handle it. It's about how you go about it. A lot of people don't know that he actually exercised his rights to the rematch, so that contractually binds us to a fight. You cannot breach that unless you do what you have to do to handle the business, to be like, okay, well, we mutually agree to let you move on and or swindle around and fight Jake Paul for this money. If you think I'm going to sit back by the wayside and sit there and be like, well, even though I'm contracted to fight this guy for this amount of money on this certain day, I'm just going to sit here and be cool with, oh, he might not ever fight me, and he's going to go fight and get paid and get this money, and I'm not supposed to get anything?
Boxing experts often say Gervonta Davis doesn't get the credit he truly deserves. They point out that every time someone steps into the ring with him, that opponent's name suddenly blows up. Their recognition skyrockets. Fighters who were barely noticed before become known across the world just because they shared those moments under the lights with Tank. It's a pattern that reveals his star power and how much influence he really has on the sport. Even critics who argue he hasn't faced tough enough competition are reminded that his presence alone can build or break a career. Analysts agree, his wins don't just prove he's a knockout artist. They show he carries the full weight of boxing spotlight on his shoulders.
Ongoing discussion in the boxing world about Gervonta Davis and Gervonta Davis, his resume, who he's going to fight, the competitors that he's going to fight. And every once in a while, something happens that proves that Gervonta Davis is the face of that. If he's not the face of boxing because people just don't want him to be that, man, he is real close to it, because other than Canelo Alvarez, and even consider Canelo Alvarez included, nobody in boxing has divisions circulating around him like Gervonta Davis does. And that was proved during this Lamont Roach versus Pitbull Cruz announcement for their pay-per-view. Just think about this. Gervonta Davis, they always say that Gervonta Davis has a poor resume, but yet Gervonta Davis, guys that fight Gervonta Davis, lose to Gervonta Davis, or get a draw to Gervonta Davis, can fight one another and make an anticipated pay-per-view between the two of them. Because that fight with Pitbull Cruz is a very, very popular fighter with Mexican fight fans. Lamont Roach got a lot of name exposure with black fight fans and Mexican fight fans and white fight fans, all with his draw that he got against Gervonta Davis. Now they believe that this is going to be able to be a profitable endeavor for a pay-per-view. Now, let me also tell you that Rolly Romero, who was somebody else that Gervonta Davis fought in the past, will be on a pay-per-view that's going to be successful, most likely, when he defends his WBC.
Stephen Fulton stepped up to defend Gervonta Davis from the constant claims that he's only fighting for money. He reminded everyone that every boxer has the right to secure their future after years of putting their body and health on the line. Fulton explained that Tank has already proven himself, winning world titles, delivering unforgettable performances, and earning his place in boxing history. So taking big money, high-profile fights now isn't selfish, it's smart. He argued that fighters deserve the balance between legacy and financial security, especially in a sport where one bad night can end everything. Fulton's words hit home for fans, reminding them that Tank has already earned the right to choose what's best for him, both in the ring and beyond it. And coming from a respected fighter like Fulton, that defense made one thing clear. Davis's choices aren't driven by greed. They're driven by wisdom.
Anybody in that position would have taken that fight, especially with the payout. It's like, that's a no-brainer, but I understand. I still feel for Lamont. That's my boy. Like, he still want his rematch. But then when you be realistic about the money situation, you're changing your whole family life. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's people hate on it because they're not in that position. I'm not saying Lamont. I'm speaking like other boxers. Be like, oh, he this for that. He's this. It's a side quest. It's a little side quest. Because what happened when Floyd and all these guys went on WWE, but then they get right back to what they doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's just like it's another little side quest. I'm all for people just getting their money. So get the best, make the most that you can out of this entertainment world. Cause, I mean, I don't know. I would have done it, as far as the money aspect, cause none of us would deny that money. They talking like they would. None of them would deny that money.
Luke Thomas approached the situation from a different angle. While he praised Gervonta Davis for his knockout power and technical precision, he couldn't help but notice that something felt off this time. In interviews and public moments, Tank didn't carry that same fire he usually shows before a big fight. Thomas observed a calmness, almost too calm, as if this matchup didn't stir him emotionally. To him, it seemed like Tank viewed this fight less as a challenge and more as a business move. He suggested that maybe it's the hype around Jake Paul, not the competition itself, that grabbed Davis's attention. Still, Thomas admitted that even when Tank's not fully switched on, he's still one of the most dangerous men in boxing, because raw talent and deep experience don't need motivation to take over once the bell rings.
So in that sense, it's a little bit different. It's not different in the sense of a boxer in his prime or relative prime straying off the path, but this one is not. It's not like someone else, in a similar weight. It's like completely the opposite, and so that makes it, I think, look and feel weird. And then on top of it, obviously, Gervonta's got other business to handle. He looked to me, Gervonta, absolutely, completely disinterested. Even at the beginning of this year, and dude, even at the pre-fight Lamont Roach stuff, Tank was talking about how much time he has left in boxing, and he was wasn't much. The Lamont Roach fight, it blew up in his face, but Lamont Roach was cherry picked. I think Tank thought, oh, I'll just fight another guy from, the mid-Atlantic area who's, remember Roach came up from 30 to 35 to fight him, and Tank thought he was just going to cruise, and then it blew up in his face, and, you're left with that. So, you're making a point about, oh, he's got this obligation. That's true, but he was already fucking around. He was already taking opponents that, again, I think Roach showed everyone that was a mistake, but put yourself in Tank's mind. Tank was taking a fight against someone he was clearly, in his mind anyway, better than, and was just going to cruise. So he was already in that state. Then you marry that with statements like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this, and blah, blah, blah. And, I'm worried about going to therapy because it'll take away my competitive edge.
And even though some see this fight as nothing more than a money grab, others recognize it as something deeper, a personal statement from Gervonta Davis. He's not stepping into the ring just for attention. He's stepping in to prove that real fighters can rule any stage, whether it's inside the ropes or in the glare of social media fame. A win here wouldn't just add to his legacy. It would remind the world that skill, discipline, and heart still outweigh online popularity. Davis knows the eyes on him belong to both boxing purists and Jake Paul's massive fan base. For him, this isn't just another payday. It's a mission to shift the spotlight back to true competition. And if he wins decisively, it'll send one clear message: genuine talent will always rise above manufactured fame.
Davis in this particular in the press conference, and you can just look at him and tell, no, this dude he's gonna get this money for sure, because there's so much money out there to be had. But Jake Paul better be not playing around, man. Not get cute, not play any games, don't hit him in the back of the head, don't rabbit punch him, don't do any of that stuff, man, because Mike Tyson, first of all, a lot of people think Mike Tyson was pulling punches on Jake Paul, and a lot of people think that Anderson Silva was pulling punches on him too. You're not going to have a little Gervonta out there pulling punches on you, man, if you're out there playing games. So, I don't like the fight at all, However, as far as it being an entertaining situation, I almost guarantee you that that fight itself is going to be entertaining. That it's going to be something that you look at and you're going to say, man, everybody's going to watch it. Everybody's going to want to know what happens in it. But at the same time, it's kind of like what people think, you know, when you see a car crash, like you're driving down the road and all of a sudden the traffic gets heavy and you're like, man, I'm going to be in traffic for a long time. And then you drive forward a little bit and then you see, oh man, this is some accident on the other side of the road and everybody just slowing down to watch. That's the type of entertainment that you can expect from this fight between Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul. There's going to be a lot of people watching it, but I got to say, man, you really can't blame the guy on what he's doing. And there's a lot of criticism flying on Gervonta Davis. It's not Gervonta Davis's fault that boxing took this turn.
Charleston White has never been one to bite his tongue, and he didn't hold back when it came to Jake Paul. To him, Jake's entire career feels more like entertainment than real sport. Charleston believes that once Jake steps in against someone like Gervonta Davis, the gap between a true champion and an online entertainer will be impossible to ignore. He says Tank's reflexes, timing, and years of experience fighting world-class opponents will quickly expose Jake's lack of real boxing depth. In White's words, fame can grab attention, but it can't fake experience. He argues that real boxing legends are built through pain, pressure, and years of elite competition, not through exhibition bouts or social media hype. His brutally honest take echoes what many hardcore fans already believe. Gervonta Davis operates on a level Jake Paul has never even come close to. And once they finally meet in the ring, the truth will speak for itself.
And what he said was, look, man, do not pick against Jake Paul because he didn't believe that any of the fights that Jake Paul have had to date really have been a real thing. And that the boxing world is looking for that great WHITE hype. And Jake Paul is going to be that guy, even though he really can't do it in a real boxing match. So he was basically reflecting and saying that he, you know, the saying where they say, believe a half of what you hear, half of what you see and none of what you hear. He adjusted it to say, don't believe anything you hear and anything you say, anything that you hear and anything that you see. And honestly, man, when it comes to internet boxing, YouTube boxing, and what people say is going on in the media, without a doubt, I think Charleston White is 100% right about that. Don't believe anything you hear. Don't believe anything you see. Wait to see how things play out, and ultimately everything will come out in the wash. Well, going into this fight with Gervonta Davis, I had my concerns about the fight because of the same type of reasoning that Charleston White used, except for mine is slightly different. I don't think that either one of these guys are going to try to do too much damage to each other. Number one, because if it's scripted, which more than likely to an extent it will be, Gervonta Davis is not going to put himself in a situation where Jake Paul is going to actually be able to hurt him.
That reality will be impossible to ignore. And with that, we wrap up today's video. Stay tuned because this story is far from over. Until next time.